Good evening, and welcome to the special meeting pertaining to the 2025 North Perth Operations Budget. Today's meeting date is November 13th, 2024. I'm Mark Nordam. I'm the chair of the 2025 Budget Committee. I will call this meeting to order. I ask that the clerk note that the starting time is 7 p.m. Warm welcome to council, staff, and members of the public. We begin this meeting by playing O Canada. I invite you to please stand if you are able. We acknowledge that we are on traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous people of Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with peace or with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. We will now move to disclosures of pecuniary interest. Is there any for this meeting? Councillor Anstead.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I'll be declaring a conflict tonight on item 3.1, the draft 2025 fees and charges bylaw, as I have children that attend daycare and before and after school programming, and also on the confirmatory bylaw item 6.1. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to the agenda. I have a motion before me that tonight's agenda be approved. Looking for a mover. Councillor Richardson and Councillor Rothwell. Any discussion or debate? Let's have the vote. I'm still rebooting as well, so I'll be in favor. And that is carried. We will now be moving on to reports. Item 3.1, draft 2025 fees and charges bylaw.
Good evening. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Through you, Chair, I'm going to go over the report that was published. For your information, the draft 2025 fees and charges bylaw was included in the package for tonight's meeting as an opportunity to review what is being proposed for 2025. For a quick review, the fees and charges are a revenue generating mechanism for user pay services provided by North Perth, aimed at recovering some costs from those individuals who use the various services. For the 2025 fiscal year, the main adjustment was the 3.13% inflationary rate used by the municipality. Additionally, there was an adjustment made to fees in the departments that now utilize credit card processing to aid in recovering the costs associated with that service. The fees and charges were reviewed by each department for their specific area to determine where changes were able to be made. To illustrate a few of the changes for 2025, the first one for the building department, fees were indexed by the 3.13%, with an additional 1% added to align with the rate study that Council approved earlier in 2024, which supports the building department reserve. To somewhat aid in recovering the increased OPP costs, the rates for false alarm responses would be increasing. Currently, the first two false alarms were provided at no cost. The third false alarm was being charged at $300, and each additional false alarm in that year adding $100 to the previous amount. For 2025, the proposal is that only the first false alarm would be at no cost, with the second false alarm being charged $300, and each additional would be increased by $200. At the landfill, the minimum waste charge will be increased, or would be increased from $10 to $12, and this is the first time that increase has occurred since 2009. An electric vehicle charging fee has been added to the fees and charges bylaw for 2025 at an hourly rate of $2 to recover the hydro consumption at the charging stations. For information, the childcare rates that were recently approved with council are included in there. They're the same as what was approved, but were included just to make a comprehensive document. Those are just a few of the examples proposed, but I would like to open up if there are any questions from council.
Thanks for the report. Is there any questions from council? Seeing none, are we moving on to the next report? Or okay, Clerk Klein.
Sorry, there's just a motion to receive the fees and charges report for information.
Correct. I have a motion before me that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives draft 2025 fees and charge bylaw report for information purposes. Looking for a mover? Councillor Johnson and Councillor Andreessen. Discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have the vote. And Deputy Mayor Kelm and Councillor Rothwell vote in favor manually. And that is carried. We will be moving on to item 3.2, 2025 Proposed Operating Budget and Business Plan. And Ashton is coming to the microphone.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members of council. So tonight, we're pleased to have before you the proposed 2025 business plans and operating budget. The proposed overall property tax levy adjustment for 2025 is just under $2.1 million, or 10.46% increase year over year. Coupling in assessment growth, this equates to an approximate 8.76% increase, or an additional $198 per year for the median residential household on the North Perth portion of the tax bill. Major contributors to this increase include those from the OPP contract, salaries and wages adjustments, gravel road maintenance contract obligations, and funding for infrastructure, all of which are detailed in the report. Particularly for the OPP, the contract for 2025 has an increase of 23%, or $644,000. As you may be aware, there have been significant increases for OPP allocations to all municipalities, or to the majority of municipalities across Ontario who benefit from the OPP service. One which I've heard has gone up upwards of 37%. So for greater clarity, the tax impact on the median household, isolating the OPP increase, equates to 2.65%, or $60, leaving only 6.11%, or $138 for the remaining municipal services. Excluding the OPP would leave a similar tax increase experience for those in the 2024 year. Other key highlights noted in the report is that the budget contemplates 3 additional full-time equivalent staff, one of which have already been funded from previous years. This year included an updated approach to staffing requests internally before making them included in the budget. Rationale for these positions brought forward are included in the report. This year's intake did see a total of 5 full-time equivalent requests and 1 part-time. Of these requests, 2 full-time equivalents and 1 part-time were not included to balance the financial impacts of this tax year's levy. These requests will be reevaluated in the upcoming budget year. Infrastructure investment is also a key component of the tax increase. Continued investments in municipalities' reserves is vital to promote long-term financial sustainability with forthcoming capital pressures and the known infrastructure gap. This year's increase equates to $250,000, or roughly 1.25% on the levy. As well, the budget includes additional funding towards the CIP by $25,000, moving the funding envelope to $100,000. $50,000 towards the Huron-Perth Ag Science Center, and an additional $20,000 towards the healthcare recruitment, which brings that funding envelope to $65,000. As mentioned in the cover report, due to the current tax increase before you, staff did not include additional funding towards healthcare initiatives outside of the $20,000 just mentioned. If it is council's desire to provide more beyond what was included, it will have a further impact on levy, presuming status quo on the other considerations before you. Assessment growth was one item I wanted to draw your attention as well. In years of slow growth, the municipality has yielded less revenues than those in previous years, which would have reduced the burden had we had a higher assessment growth on the median household. It is expected that a similar trend will continue for the 2026 year, but in years that the strong assessment growth for development begins to pick up, it would be recommended that we begin apportioning some of these additional revenues into reserves as well. Lastly, to ease the tax levy impact, in collaboration with other departments, staff were able to find some efficiencies, the majority of which were the non-reintroduction of one-time initiatives that were previously included into the operating budget and transitioned as capital initiatives. This ensures that these initiatives still occur, but rather financing them through reserve funds rather than the general operating budget. So in addition to the budget information, another core element of this document is the business plans. This year saw a major update to the format and content, including the new budget tables. I wanted to thank Ms. McLean and her team for their efforts in coordinating this. Given the updates included in this budget process, as always, we're open to hearing any feedback that we can look to further improving upon. So next steps would be to receive your feedback tonight, then consolidate the capital budget that will be discussed next week into a final consolidated document for draft approval in December. I also wanted to take a moment to thank the finance team, Mr. Seifert, Ms. French, my colleagues on the senior management team, CEO Snell, budget chair and vice chair, and everyone else involved in this collaborative effort. So at this point, I'm able to answer any high-level questions. Otherwise, we do have all departments present here for presentations on their business plans and budget.
Thanks, Ashton. Any high-level questions for Ashton now? We will be hearing from the other managers from their various operations. So any questions for Ashton at this time? Councillor Blazek?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. This isn't a question so much as a comment. I said this to Ashton when I got here today, and I want to say it out loud because I think that the members of the public should take a look at this budget report. I think that it is put together in a user-friendly and transparent way that we have not ever seen before. It's so easy to follow, and I think that I would encourage members of our community to look at this and get a really good understanding of where their tax dollars are going. Props to you and your team. This budget is really well put together so far. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Blazek, and very much agreed. Anyone else with questions? Seeing none for Ashton, I think we can move on to the office of the CAO. Or correction, is it the BIA first? Yeah, we'll do BIA first.
Good evening, council members. My name is Alyssa Kempfer, and I have had the privilege of serving as a coordinator for the Listowel Business Improvement Area, or BIA, for over 2 years. Tonight, I'm here on behalf of the BIA board to share our accomplishments from this past year and to present a proposed 2025 budget. The Listowel BIA is a local board of council dedicated to promoting and enhancing Listowel, to cultivate a vibrant business area and to encourage people to make time in Listowel. Our mission is to elevate the business area through beautification and promotional efforts that go beyond the municipality's services, ultimately to benefit the entire community. Our key objectives include driving local improvements, enhancing the physical environment, stimulating economic growth, and providing resources and support to our business community. As a part-time staff member, I oversee event planning and management, marketing and promotions, beautification and maintenance, and organizational administration. Allow me to highlight a few of our key initiatives from 2024. Based on our 2023 strategic plan, we identified the need for a brand refresh. We collaborated with Boulevard North, a local company, to develop new branding, including an updated logo, which features the iconic clock tower, a symbol within our community. This rebranding also introduced our new tagline, which is Make Time, which ties into the clock tower imagery and lends itself into creative uses across campaigns. We also enhanced our events. For example, our 2-week-long summer sales days features synchronized sales across businesses, supported by a $500 Shop Local Dollar giveaway to encourage community participation. This campaign gathered over 3,000 entries, broadening exposure for both well-known and emerging businesses. Summer sale days concluded with our inaugural Listowel Summer Block Party, which featured food trucks, inflatables, live music, and children's activities. This event fostered a family-friendly atmosphere, making Listowel an appealing community-centered destination. In October, we improved our Trick or Treat the Street event, attracting over 200 visitors to participating businesses in just 3 hours. This initiative encouraged the community to explore and engage with local businesses that they might not have otherwise visited. In a few weeks, we are looking forward to hosting our Deck the Halls holiday event. Alongside horse-drawn carriage rides, we're adding an outdoor vendor market, live music, and food trucks. We aim to create positive, memorable experiences, promoting repeat visits, word-of-mouth promotion, and boosting local tourism in the economy. Our promotional efforts have included several social media campaigns spotlighting BIA member businesses. For example, during the October Small Business Week, we produced videos that became our top performing social media content. These videos highlighted both business owners and their operations, offering them greater visibility. We also are launching a holiday loyalty card program, incentivizing customers to shop at multiple participating businesses with rewards to encourage spending, inter-business collaboration, and repeat visits. In 2024, we continued our commitment to enhancing the town's aesthetics with flower planters, hanging baskets, and flowers in the clamshells. We also collaborated with the Listowel Legion to display additional veteran banners throughout the community. In September, the BIA invested $12,000 to purchase umbrellas for at Character Square, providing shaded areas for residents and visitors. Looking ahead, there are several trends and opportunities that stand out within the BIA's scope. We are seeing a growing interest in outdoor events and social activities. We are also seeing an opportunity to invest further in public spaces and beautification projects. However, balancing the scope of these initiatives with our limited staff capacity remains a challenge for us. On the next slide in the presentation, I've included just a couple of photos from our events, just showing some pride of what we've been able to accomplish. The horse and carriage rides is from last year, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of what to expect for this coming year. Moving on to 2025, the new initiatives that we're excited to propose include 150th Community Design Banners. So to celebrate Listowel's 150th anniversary, we plan to invite the community members to submit designs for street banners, increasing engagement, showcasing local creativity, and celebrating the significant milestone. The Patty Fest temporary photo installation. In March, it's typically a quieter month for us at the BIA, we will introduce a temporary photo installation in the downtown to mark St. Patrick's Day. This will serve as a beautification effort, celebrate community spirit, and promote a local event. The Community Spring Clean. In April, we hope to organize a town-wide cleanup to beautify our public spaces, foster local pride, and strengthen community bonds. And then the Public Art Project. The BIA board is considering a $20,000 investment in public art to enrich the town's character and attract interest in the Listowel area. For our budget, the BIA is funded through a special levy on commercially assessed properties within the Listowel's designated BIA boundary. For 2025, the proposed increase is 3.1%, which mirrors the inflationary increase the municipality uses, plus any adjusted assessment values for 2025, which works out to a 5.6% increase in what the BIA will receive for 2025. This funding supports BIA administration and our project costs, including personnel, advertising, sponsorships, and events. For 2025, we identified some budget efficiencies, reducing third-party service and administrative costs while reallocating funds under materials and supplies to support new projects. This budget reflects our commitment to driving local improvements, supporting economic growth, and maximize the impact of our resources on the community and ensure a vibrant, attractive business area. Finally, I would just like to extend our gratitude to the municipality for its invaluable support. This partnership with the municipality that the BI has is instrumental to our success, and we greatly appreciate the ongoing collaboration. We'd like to make special thanks to Deputy Mayor Kellum, who is a BIA board director, for attending our meetings, providing insights, and keeping us informed on municipal initiatives. Thank you all for your attention. I'd be pleased to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Alyssa. Yeah, thank you for your report and thank you for everything you do at the BIA. Any questions for Alyssa? Seeing none, you're getting off easy. We'll be moving on to the Office of CAO and Human Resources.
Good evening, Council. I'd like to begin by thanking Ashton and his finance team for putting together the 2025 budget. I also like to express thanks to the entire senior management team. This has been a difficult budget in many ways, dealing with costs beyond our control, such as the policing and OP policing and gravel costs. At the same time, trying to prioritize council's priorities, including infrastructure funding, housing, and still trying to maintain the current service levels. We recognize that we'd all like to see the number be a little bit lower, but we've tried our best as staff to bring a responsible budget to council. As council knows, the CIO's office is sort of the umbrella department for the corporation, being responsible for leadership and management, strategic planning and policy development, financial stewardship, community and stakeholder engagement, community development and planning, as well as human resources management. Kelly will speak to human resources management just after my presentation. I'm just going to highlight a couple of priority areas and objectives. Really, it's delivering services efficiently and cost effectively, as well as engaging and communicating both councils' priorities to both staff and the community. Some of the 2024 department highlights I'd like to mention are mentoring and team building of the senior management team. Again, council and stakeholder relations. Continued progress and implementation of both the West End Development and the Northeast Master Plan. And continued participation in the Carbon Footprint Initiative. Which leads us into some of the emerging trends and opportunities. As this council is aware, with the new County of Perth official plan, population growth and infrastructure needs are going to continue to be one of the things we're going to need to keep an eye on and work towards in this budget and future budgets, as well as environmental sustainability and climate adaptation, and of course housing affordability and housing initiatives, as well as employee satisfaction and retention. Overall, my department's budget increase is mostly due to the conversion of one shared position, which Kelly will talk about briefly, as well as the cost of living adjustments across the department. So unless anybody has any questions specifically on my section, I will then call on Kelly to talk about HR component.
Thank you, CAO Sal. Any questions for Chris? Seeing none, I think we'll move to HR.
Good evening, Council. So tonight I will go over priorities and the 2025 budget proposal for HR. So in reviewing HR's priorities, the work climate is evolving at a fast pace with societal and technological changes that need constant focus and strategic direction to ensure that effective and a thriving work culture is maintained. So, as HR does manage all stages of the employment life cycle, we are people focused with the goal for employees to feel safe, valued, and engaged during their time at North Perth from start to finish. So, some key achievements in 2024 of this year. So, our busiest function was, of course, recruitment and retention efforts. And so far, we have hired over 80 positions this year. So, that may seem like a scary number. But just to break it down, so there were 8 retirements in total, 8 resignations, which majority were in childcare, and the reasons seem to be relocations or work closer to home. As we know, that's definitely a trend. Roughly 50 summer students and 15 seasonal staff. So our turnover rate in 2024 was 7% with retirements. We did have a big year of retirements with some key positions. And without retirement, our turnover rate is roughly 3.9%. So we're trending down, which is a good sign, and we have an overall goal to get to 2%. Some other 2024 key achievements are ongoing HRIS ADP implementations, so our recruitment module as well as the performance management modules. We updated a few key policies to continue to support our strategic goals and ongoing staff engagement, appreciation, and special events focus. So we have, or HR has 5 major initiatives for next year. So our first one is policy development and improvements to continue to be a focus to ensure that they're clear, effective, and relevant policies for all of our departments. That can be tricky sometimes. Our second is another initiative of succession planning to ensure that we're promoting integral growth and development, to avoid interruptions with key roles, to continue to meet our corporate needs, as well as our third is leadership focus and development. So HR's mission is to continue to empower leaders to build strong and trusting relationships with their staff, and that in turn will promote retention efforts. Employee well-being and engagement focus is our fourth, and our fifth is ongoing attraction and retention efforts with updating our onboarding and orientation methods, employee branding, and corporate branding is a constant focus as well. So moving to the 2025 HR budget. So as Chris mentioned, we are requesting an additional half staff member. So we are managing a heavy workload with just 2 support staff handling numerous crucial functions across 8 departments, like recruitment and retention, payroll, and health and safety, with each department having their own unique and specialized demands. So we are requesting additional half position to support with HR critical functions like recruitment and retention initiatives. So to put it into perspective, so those 80 people that we hired, that was mostly one HR support person doing all of that. So that's 80 people that HR is trying to coordinate with, communicate with to ensure that they have a smooth and successful start here at North Perth. So one person doing the majority of that just isn't sustainable or effective. So ultimately, our goal with the additional half person is to enhance HR's strategic and efficient workflows, allowing improved focus on optimizing the employee life experience and supporting our organizational goals more effectively. So thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser. Any questions for Kelton? Seeing none. Chris, you want to say something?
Just before I sit down, I'd just like to certainly make one last comment. As mentioned in the master's report, we did implement, with the help of HR, a new service level process to add additional staff. And as Ashley mentioned, we had many requests, and we certainly took our due diligence and looked at the efficiencies created by adding the additional positions, as well as if they weren't added, could we get by without extensive service reductions or such things as overtime costs. So, as Ashley said, those demands don't go away. We'll need to probably bring those forward in a future year. But I just wanted to reiterate to council that the positions we're requesting have been really thought out by both the senior managers and um, the, myself in the HR department with Ashton's support. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I think now we will be moving on to corporate services.
Good evening, Council, through you, Chair Nordam. I will be presenting the business plan for legislative services before passing it over to my colleague, Treasurer Romani, who will be presenting finance. So the Legislative Services Division of Corporate Services supports the council decision-making process, ensures compliance with relevant legislation, and fosters accountability and transparency within local government in North Perth. Some of our core functions include council and committee support, municipal elections, licensing, records management, freedom of information requests, and vital statistics. To highlight some key achievements from 2024, we completed the council composition and ward boundary review with the assistance of our consulting team from Watson & Associates. We were selected to participate in the province's new online marriage license application program, which has streamlined the process for both applicants applying for a marriage license, as well as the municipality who issues the licenses. And this has also resulted in an uptick in the number of licenses that we have issued. So just to provide some data, in 2023, we issued 100 marriage licenses. And so far to date in 2024, we've issued 158. So that's a 58% increase. And we've also continued great work with our governance review committee, and we've introduced a new code of conduct policy for council, committees, and boards. So looking forward in terms of challenges in the future of the Legislative Services Division, we are a small but mighty team of two. We have myself as the Legislative Services Supervisor and Clerk, as well as our Deputy Clerk and Committee Coordinator. We are seeing a trend of more administrative routine tasks filling up our day, such as issuing licenses, as I mentioned, with the number of marriage licenses increasing. This does leave us with less time to focus on more strategic, high-level priority items such as policy updates, bylaw reviews, as well as our records management program. Records management specifically is one of our key focus areas for 2025. You'll hear more about this project through the capital budget process, but we are proposing to conduct a review of our corporate records management system to ensure we're effectively and efficiently managing our records and are compliant with current legislation. So to address the gap in our ability to focus on more strategic projects and to assist with this records management program, we are proposing the addition of an FTE within legislative services. This position would serve as the legislative services and records assistant, whose primary responsibilities would be taking on more of those routine tasks, such as licensing and records maintenance, and free up some of the workload for myself and the deputy clerk. Another area of focus for 2025 will be preparations for the 2026 municipal election, which it's hard to believe that's already on our radar. And we already have started on election work through the investigation of alternative voting methods, which we will be bringing to council by the end of this year. And then once our voting methods have been established and approved by council, we can ramp up that work through 2025. And the proposed legislative services and records assistant position would also be a key support during the municipal election process. It's anticipated that municipal elections will become increasingly complex, requiring additional staff resources during the preparation, implementation, and follow-up of the election period. So Treasurer Romani will provide a summary of the proposed 2025 operating budget for corporate services as a whole. Legislative services remains fairly status quo with the exception of the increase in salary and wages due to the new position we're proposing. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I can pass it over to our treasurer.
Thanks, Clerk Klein. Any questions for Lindsay? Seeing none, I think Ashton's going to come up and say a couple words.
Thank you, Chair Durham. So the Finance Division oversees the financial activities for the municipality, including but not limited to budget, long-range financial planning, property taxation, utility billing, asset management, procurement, and risk management. So for finance in 2025, some of the key priorities are focused on improving customer service, expanding the municipality's asset management program, promoting long-term sustainability, financial sustainability and accountability. Some of the key achievements from 2024 surround implementing policies and bylaws such as development charges, procurement of goods and services, and reserve funds, and also undertaking an updated approach to the budget which you have before you tonight. So looking at 2025 and the future, one major item on the horizon is the additional legislation coming into force in regards to asset management on July 1st, 2025. Items within this legislation consider desired levels of service, life cycle strategies, and annual reporting to council on the municipality's asset management program. The need for a dedicated resource to support these items is essential. As such, funding was included in previous year budgets for such position, but is now being formally requested. Asset management will continue to play a vital role in the long-range financial planning and evidence-based decision-making surrounding the municipality's infrastructure. Another key item during the 2025 is to provide a comprehensive review of finance operations, looking to streamline processes where possible. This initiative also serves as a cornerstone to begin replacing the municipality's enterprise resource planning software, which has been in place since 2005 and is now utilized well beyond its intended design and is known to occasionally fail. Given the significant piece of digital infrastructure that supports various modules and external softwares, migrating from an ERP can be quite expensive and resource intensive. So to further support this decision-making, the approach, the 2025 capital program you'll see next week also includes an IT master plan to perform comprehensive review of this software while also addressing other IT-related infrastructure. So on the note of the proposed master plan, shifting gears for IT on behalf of Mr. Bauer, 2024 saw the commencement of key initiatives such as the development of a disaster recovery site to ensure business continuity in the event of a failure or disruption to the core IT infrastructure, migrating the corporate phone system, which would have been happening it's anticipated to happen in the next few weeks, and commencement of a CIS 18 audit, which looks at assessing cybersecurity preparedness. Finalizing these initiatives into 2025 and coupling together the results from the cybersecurity audit with the forthcoming IT master plan will help establish an updated foundation for IT moving forward. So as a whole, the corporate services budget is relatively status quo with a few exceptions. As referenced in the cover report, the decline in the Bank of Canada interest rates is anticipated that the general investment income that we receive in the municipality's general bank account is expected to decline. As such, you'll see a decline of around $200,000 in this line item. Other key changes fall into staffing costs, as previously mentioned, towards the legislative services and records management assistant position, plus the inflationary adjustments to existing positions within the budget. Overall, the budget does have an impact of change around $337,000 for the 2025 year. Thank you, and here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ashton. Any questions? Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through the chair. I just have a question just around the structure. In the structure diagram, there's a position called Manager of Corporate Services, states that it's vacant. Is the intention that that would remain vacant for next year, and what your thoughts are on that? Thank you.
So at present, there's no timeline to fill that position, but I suspect it will be filled in 2025. It will be an internal posting from within the current supervisors of the corporate services department. Um, Certainly, um, the, just letting everybody in that department sort of get settled into the current roles, and then we will post the position in sometime in 2025.
Yep, supplementary.
So supplementary, thank you through you, the chair. So would you anticipate there'll be additional cost with that because you'd have to replace someone within internally? If you're hiring someone internally, you'd have to replace that person, so there might be additional cost.
So typically, the position of the senior management, those senior management positions end up wearing both their existing hat as well as their assuming overall management of the entire department. So there won't be substantial initial costs.
Any more questions? Oh, Councilor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Budget Chair. Question specifically regarding the proposed new asset management coordinator position. Can you just refresh myself and council regarding our current situation, the way asset management is dealt with in terms of one lead and how that's operated, and then what's happening with that role and responsibility in the current situation? If we move forward with the new asset management coordinator, where do the additional responsibilities go for that position that's currently undertaking that role? Thank you.
Through your chair, Nordum, to be quite frank, asset management, the program is not pretty well looked after right now. Right now, it sits on my lap, but I don't have the capacity to administer that. In consultation with the previous deputy treasurer, it was kind of a blended role. And we both observed when I first started that it's not feasible to do that, where the finance supervisor, deputy treasurer should be looking at day-to-day finance operations as a whole. The asset management portfolio is quite the task. This position seems to be is intended to be a coordinator that liaises with multiple departments similar to other service-based like procurement to establish the corporate asset management program and work with their data sets to populate our asset management register, which would feed into our asset management planning processes.
Yep, supplementary.
Just further, thanks very much, Ashton. I'm just wanting to make sure, clearly we know the importance of asset management, and I think our staff have tried hard to deal with that. It's just a matter that the role and responsibility of this position is such that it's a growing aspect as we build more infrastructure and so on and acquire more assets. So I just want to make sure that we fully understand the support that's required behind this, as well as in the support that's required from all departments to facilitate that. And I think you've sort of laid bare one of our problems or issues that we're dealing with. I don't want to make it sound any worse than it is, but we know it's a critical role, and I'm glad to see you're taking steps to address it, but obviously there's a cost to do so. But thanks very much.
Thank you. Any more questions? I think that's it. We will be moving to strategic initiatives.
Good evening, Council. So tonight I am here to just talk through the Strategic Initiatives 2020 Business Plan. As you're aware, the Strategic Initiatives Department includes divisions of Special Initiatives, Economic Development, and Communications. And through our current strategic plan, our team is assigned a variety of priority areas. This includes assisting employers in having a skilled workforce, promoting agricultural sector productivity and innovation, creating diverse housing options, offering diverse transportation options, and being a diverse and inclusive community. As a newer team, we are also prioritizing staff training to ensure service effectiveness and sustainability. In 2024, our team was quite busy, and I'd like to highlight a few achievements that we were able to complete. So, staff did apply to various grant funds. This included the Rural Economic Development Program, Housing Accelerator Fund Round 2, and the Skills Development Fund. Staff developed and implemented various projects, including the Workforce Employment Branding Project, which was supported by RED funding, as well as the Attainable Housing Community Improvement Plan. Staff designed and launched the new municipal website, as well as the North Perth AgriLink Business Concierge Service. Staff continue to offer and grow Set 7 programming, specifically our English as a Second Language program, which has proven to be quite successful, and the Set 7 learning space at the Alma Memorial Community Center was completed. With the assistance of our DEI Advisory Committee, staff created and promoted significant dates within the community. And we also continue to participate on the North Perth Physician Recruitment Committee. In terms of emerging opportunities and risks that we are keeping an eye on and may impact our future work plans, the results of the pending grant applications that we have submitted could influence our work in the coming year, specifically the submissions to the Housing Accelerator Fund and the Skills Development Fund if they are successful. We're also noticing a growing community demands for business support, events, tourism, newcomer assistance, DEI initiatives, housing, and enhanced communication that will impact staff capacity as services and programs expand. It's proposed that the increase of the communications coordinator to a full FTE will provide additional support for these special initiatives. Lastly, I'd like to highlight that the potential high uptake of the Attainable Housing Community Improvement Plan financial incentive programs, especially the tax increment equivalency grant program, may require council to consider additional funding beyond the current CIP budget in future years. In terms of our plans for 2025, some major initiatives that we will be looking to work on and implement. It would be continuing implementation of the Attainable Housing CIP, and the 2025 budget does include an increase of $25,000 to the CIP funding envelope. Also, continued participation on the Physician Recruitment Committee and involvement in related initiatives. The 2025 budget proposal includes an increase of $20,000 towards the physician recruitment budget for a total donation of $65,000. We also plan to review and update the municipality's communication plan with an overall goal of enhancing corporate communications and consistency in municipal branding and ensuring that our communication methods are accessible. We will continue to deliver Set 7 training programs, employer support, and look into more partnership development. The focus of training for 2025 includes skilled trades, home daycare training, ESL, and other compliance training courses. As I noted, we are awaiting news on our recent submission to the Skills Development Fund, which would support some of these training programs in 2025. Lastly, we will continue to implement the actions in the Agricultural Excellence Strategy. So those are being partially funded by a RED grant. And the other initiatives noted in the business plan will be reviewed at the capital budget meeting next week. So in summary, the proposed 2025 budget for the Strategic Initiatives Department includes the increased funding of $25,000 for the Housing Action Plan, specifically the Attainable Housing CIP, a new $5,000 allocation for DEI initiatives, as well as increasing the communication role to a full FTE. Economic development expenses include a $50,000 grant to the Huron Perth Ag Science Center to support administrative costs in 2025. A similar grant was provided by the municipality in 2024, and this 2025 grant request has been endorsed by the North Perth Economic Development Advisory Committee. As noted previously, the municipality's donation towards physician recruitment has also increased by $20,000. And these budget increases are balanced by reducing third-party consultation costs, as well as many one-time initiatives have been transitioned over to the capital project, as capital projects. Overall, the proposed 2025 strategic initiatives budget sees a modest proposed change, and I can answer any questions council may have.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. Any questions for Jessica? Seeing none, I do have one question. So on the DEI action plan, we have 125,000 split over 2 years. It seems rather expensive. Like we have, if I compare it to like a storm water rate at around 45,000, I'm just kind of curious the costs and what's involved in that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. So, we will be providing a bit more detail on that project next week, but that project has been developed in consultation with the Huron Perth Public Health, and we did apply for a grant to support the project costs. That application was unsuccessful, but we do plan to continue to look for grant opportunities. A portion of the project costs would be reserved for a component of micro grants that would be provided to community groups, etc., that they could implement actions that are in the proposed plan. So it's a little high level at this point, but that's a bit of summary of what we're looking to do.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing, Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair, and through you, thanks very much for the report. I'm just wondering if you could just talk to us further about the proposal for the full-time equivalent for communications coordinator and the change from what we have now to what the proposal is, just in terms of staffing. No, obviously we're increasing, but is it a full? It's a half increase, as I understand. But how is that actually going to roll forward, and how does that impact our other departments that are dealing with communications? Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you for your question. So the transition of the communications coordinator role to a full-time a full-time equivalent from a part-time equivalent as right now will allow for the position to be a bit more proactive and strategic in communication methods. Right now, it's a bit more reactive, and we take a lot of direction from the other departments in the types of things they'd like to communicate and letting us know what they would like to be posted. We're hoping that we can take on a bit more of those roles from our other departments so that they have more time to do other tasks. As well, we would really like to review our current communications plan and implement a more comprehensive strategy that aligns with some more modern trends and best practices for communications. With our new website, it does take a bit more time and effort to keep up to date. We noted during the review period of the last website, it's really important to make sure it's kept up to date and information doesn't get stale to help the public with the information they're looking for and increase engagement. So overall, there will just be more time for that position to focus on those items, make sure our communication methods are accessible and meet changing best practices and trends in the kind of communications field. Yep.
Thank you. I think that'll be it for questions. I don't see anyone's hands waving. All right, thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
We will be moving on to Development and Protective Services, and I believe that Chief Pape is coming to us remotely. Can you hear us, Chief?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, you can. You're good to go.
Good evening, Council. Development and Protective Services is a team of skilled professionals based at fire stations in Moncton, Atwood, and Listowel. Our responsibilities encompass public fire and life safety education, Ontario Fire Code and Building Code enforcement, emergency response, site plan application review, building permit administration, bylaw enforcement, and Perth County Joint OPP Detachment Board participation. Our priority areas and objectives for 2025 are consistent, firm, and fair enforcement of the Fire Code, Building Code, and municipal bylaws, to optimize staff training to improve service effectiveness and corporate sustainability, to roll out the firefighter compensation study to ensure our volunteer firefighters feel valued and engaged, The implementation of the recommendations from the community risk assessment that were presented to Council in July, continued implementation of the phase-in of building permit fee increases to balance cost recovery while also rebuilding our reserve fund, optimizing department processes to improve user experience, playing an active role in creating diverse housing options and improving housing density, updating and improving bylaws, penalty systems, and levels, as well as developing community education activities related to municipal bylaw enforcement. In 2024, Development and Protective Services saw a number of key achievements, including the successful launch of a smoke alarm public safety announcement featuring local PGA golf pro Corey Connors and his family in partnership with the Mintota Fire Department. For Council's information, that video has been viewed more than 30,000 times, and we have had engagements on social media with 15,145 people. The firefighter compensation study was completed, and the first annual NPFD appreciation event is planned for this weekend. The formation of the Perth County Joint OPP Detachment Board with our first meeting in September. A soft interview room was created in the North Perth Police Detachment, and we were successful in obtaining an anti-auto theft grant. We've hired an additional bylaw enforcement officer, an additional building inspector, and a new administrative assistant. This allowed us to increase bylaw service levels from 5 to 6 days per week, including late and early morning shifts. We've completed the building fees review, and it was implemented beginning August the 1st. We've seen the in-house qualification and appointment of our CBO, Sally McMullen. There have been lighting upgrades at the Listowel Fire Station, flooring upgrades at the Atwood Fire Station, and parking lot improvements at all 3 of our fire stations. For Council's awareness, there are a number of emerging trends, opportunities, challenge, and risks specific to Development and Protective Services operations. These include recruitment and retention of volunteer firefighters. We have been fortunate in hiring 12 new recruits who will begin their training with us in January. Provincial certification has definitely increased the commitment required of our firefighters. For example, the recruit program is now 100 hours of time, and these hours are met through evening and weekend work. We are experiencing rising call volumes due to population growth and long ambulance offload times at our hospital. This may necessitate additional staffing or a change to staffing models in the future. We're seeing an increase to WSIB claims due to presumptive legislation, highlighting the need for cancer reduction and mental health resilience strategies. We're seeing, unfortunately, a trend of self-interest and aggression towards authority in our community, which is leading to increased bylaw infractions and code violations and downright refusals to comply. These cases significantly strain our staff, time, and resources. In 2024, the building code will be updated effective January the 1st, merging the farm code with the general building code. There are over 2,000 amendments. Staff and industry training will be a priority in 2025. Much needed updates to North Perth's bylaws are required to strengthen enforcement tools, and that is something we continue to work on with legislative services. Our department has had a number of initiatives, planned for 2025. Highlights of those initiatives include the implementation of the firefighter compensation study, which is intended to improve the recruitment and retention of volunteer firefighters within our community. The registration of water reservoir agreements on title that are intended to survive property transfer. This will allow for increased fire protection and code compliance within our rural areas. We're looking forward to a farm safety specific public education program that will include lunch and learns, and we've already been in contact with the OFA about that, and potentially a PSA regarding grain bin and silo safety. As already mentioned, the implementation of the 2024 Ontario Building Code will require additional staff training and the development of resources to assist our development community in this transition. And now on to the budget. The Development and Protective Services 2025 operating budget has been divided into three components. The first is the fire and bylaw portion of the budget. This budget reorganizes some of our expenses and moves the annual fire gear replacement program from the capital budget to the operating budget. The increase to this year's budget is largely due to the cost of implementing the proposed firefighter compensation rates. The second portion of our budget is with respect to the building department. Notably, there has been a significant reduction in contracted services in 2025. That's an 80% reduction, and that is because we will be handling most of the administration in-house now that our staff their qualifications have increased. With these changes to the building department operations, the budget is projected to transfer a modest amount back into reserves by the end of next year. And finally, the North Perth Police Services budget. A few things to note. The staffing cost piece, there you'll see a note that is a 61.7% decrease in that cost, and that is due to cost savings with the newly formed amalgamated board. However, in 2025, the budget does see an increase of 23%, almost entirely made up of the increased OPP contract, as Treasurer Romani mentioned earlier in his report to Council. We look forward to another productive year in 2025. I would be happy to answer any of your questions at this time.
Thank you, Chief Babe. Any questions? Seeing none, I think we'll be moving on to programs.
Thank you.
Good evening, Budget Chair and members of Council. The program department's priority areas and objectives continues to be providing high-quality programs and services to North Perth, including children's services, community and recreation programs, as well as social service navigation for our community. Highlights of achievements from 2024 include the launch of a new programs registration software for improved service efficiency. We established more community partnerships to enhance social services for youth and other individuals. Our program participation continues to rise compared to 2023. We successfully renewed our agreement to continue offering North Perth early on programs and services to children 0 to 6 years old and their families. We oversaw the safe operations of 499 licensed childcare spaces, including the addition of 26 new spaces for school-age children. We supported staff in the Registered ECE Fast Track program and applied for grants, including the Canada Summer Jobs and the Seniors Community Grant. We continue to support the Lonely No More Seniors program and engaged diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives with community partners. We coordinated a Community Circle Series program to help individuals connect with community services. And we supported the Huron Children's Charter Rights, advocating for children and youth voices in decision making. Regarding emergency trends, opportunities, challenges, and risks the Council should be aware of, the additional future childcare spaces planned for North Perth will help address the community's childcare needs. However, operations will depend on childcare worker capacity. If we're not at full staff capacity, the number of rooms in operation and the number of children in each room will be impacted. The work the corporation has done over the past 2 years places North Perth in a strong competitive position, which will help in recruiting more staff. We will continue to partner with the City of Stratford on initiatives for childcare staff recruitment and retention. Also, for Council's awareness, a new updated childcare funding model has been released, and we're working closely with the City of Stratford, our Consolidated Municipal Services Manager, to evaluate how and where funding is allocated. The CWIL cost-based funding approach seeks funding based on typical costs of providing high-quality childcare to eligible children in Ontario. The City of Stratford is optimistic that the level of funding will be maintained from last year and increased as much as possible. Also, that additional funds will be allocated to support the new centre, including receiving additional CWIL funds for these eligible childcare spaces. We will maintain ongoing communication with Stratford to monitor funding allocations. Another note for Council's awareness is as housing and homelessness needs change, the support provided by the community developer and support worker will adapt and adjust. Also, as our population or housing growth continues, programs will need to grow to meet the needs of the community. Regarding major initiatives for 2025, though there are many that we'll be working on, including the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan, the Alberta Conservation Area Project, and programs for youth attraction and retention. Our major focus will be on preparations to open the new childcare centre at the Listowel Eastdale school site. We will also continue to work with community partners on opportunities to support licensed home childcare spaces in North Perth. The 2025 operating budget summary for programs shows a modest adjustment of around $24,000. Revenues in this area are primarily derived from user fees, which have been adjusted for inflation and include a small provision to offset new credit card processing fees. Expenditures largely covered personnel costs for administration support and essential supplies needed to deliver programming. This balanced approach helps sustain program offerings while addressing minor cost increases. The municipality's childcare services operates on a user pay basis, with revenues generated from user fees and subsidies provided by the Canada-wide Early Learning Childcare Program, covering costs at a level equal to expenditures. For 2025, an increase in grant revenue is anticipated to offset higher staffing expenses required to operate our childcare centres, ensuring the programs remain financially balanced. The outstanding cost you see of $16,000 represents our recreation day camps and summer camps that are not covered under the Child Care Funding Program. Happy to answer any questions Council may have.
Thank you, Ms. Gangle. Any questions for Amy? Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you through the chair. Ms. Gangle, I just wondered if you could just provide a little bit more information about the community safety and well-being plan. In the budget, it states that it would need $27,000 in the operating budget for that. Just wondering if you could, just share how that budget's going to be used. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. The Community Safety Wellbeing Planning Council have been receiving administrative assistance of a 0.5 staff member to help oversee and monitor and report on community safety wellbeing matters. The entire community has recognized that there's a large need to be able to make sure we're meeting all of the plans, and so all of the partners are taking a share of that portion of that 0.5. So that is what that's incorporated in there.
Thank you. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Chair Northam. Amy, thanks for your report. Could you just remind myself and council in terms of the expected timeline for the new spaces at Listowel Eastdale, when we can anticipate that would be open and available, that we'd have staffing in place hopefully for that? Thank you.
Yeah, all efforts we make to try to get it open as soon as we possibly can. It's difficult to define a timeline. We don't want to give anybody any false indication and hopes for that. By the end of 2025, we will be open. It's hoping sooner, but it will depend on operations licensing. There's a process that has to go for licensing as well as recruitment of staff.
So just further, if I may, so not to let any cat out of the bag or anything, but I mean, clearly from a budgeting standpoint, we've had to put a number in on that basis. So whether we're looking at from the fall forward, or so like we could have a proportionate amount of that staffing and operations of that within like on whether we've budgeted for that and whether we make it or not. But we must have made some assumptions in terms of when we hope to be open. Understanding what you said.
Yeah, last quarter is where anticipation. If we can get to last half, that'd be great, but last quarter is realistic. We've been communicating with the City of Stratford, and they've assured us there is additional funding beyond what we have budgeted that will cover opening a new center in the spaces that are there. So they have that money set aside for 2025.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be moving on now to facilities.
Thank you, Chair Nordum and members of council. Here present the operating budget and business plan for facilities. Our facilities department services two distinct stakeholders. First is the public and ratepayers who utilize the facilities we provide, including recreational facilities, parks, beautification, trails, cemeteries, and Perth Meadows. The second group we work with is our interdepartmental facilities, where we provide maintenance services and capital project implementation for libraries, fire stations, daycare centers, and public work facilities. We manage our facilities in an efficient and cost-effective way through the support of taxes, user fees, and grant funding. We plan for the future and respond to facility upkeep and repairs in a timely fashion. The department works within the guidelines of regulatory compliance agencies like the Alcohol and Gaming Commission, Building Code, etc. The facilities team overview is made up of staff in areas of cemeteries, recreation and parks, Perth Meadows, and interdepartmental divisions. There are 17 full-time staff, including the manager, supervisors, operators, and administrative staff. Part-time staff include maintenance, caretakers, bartenders, and seasonal students. Some of the highlights from 2024 were the completion of the MAP 59 on Memorial Arena Park project. This is an invite to council to attend on Monday, the 18th at 3:45. If you'd like to come out, we'll have a soft opening of the park on Monday coming up. Other projects included the new roof on the former PUC building, structural repairs to the Carnegie Library, tennis court refurbishing, and security upgrades for administrative spaces here at the municipality. And we also installed 5 playgrounds, providing free recreation to families. The department also worked with the acquisition and sale of property with the addition of the 104 office building and the sale of the former Moncton Library. Other initiatives have included the development and implementation of the ice allocation policy, ATV trail use, homelessness coordination, supporting the dog park committee, and grant submissions. Some of the trends, opportunities, and challenges is prioritization of facility maintenance and new initiatives will be required to meet expectations of the public and our facility partners. A lens will be focused on accessibility and environmentally green projects. Budget limits will help to dictate these priorities, and effort will be put towards pursuing grants and partnerships with community groups. Gathering support from community groups helps to create an environment of community pride and ownership on our projects. And finally, active transportation and trail development will be important to improve residents' health and quality of life. A few of the major initiatives we have in the coming years will see projects like the refurbishment of the Alma Memorial Community Center, a new pool in Listowel, and the creation of a number of new parks in some of our newer subdivisions. From a department operating budget standpoint, we're reflecting a modest increase of $155,000, or approximately 4.4%. The revenues of our department are derived from user fees associated with North Perth facilities. That includes fees from events, food, and beverage sales. Adam Seaford also explained that we have gone through a process of having our fees adjusted by some of our committees, so like our cemeteries committee, Perth Meadows, and Recreation Advisory Committee have all played a part in increasing our fees to reflect increases in inflation. Um, Expenses primarily cover facility maintenance, hydro costs, and personnel required to keep facilities open to the public, supporting the continued operation and upkeep of our community spaces here in North Perth. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Any questions for Jeff at this point? Councillor Andreessen?
Thank you, through you, the chair. Not sure if this is much as a question or even a comment. I noticed on your report around the major initiatives for 2025, our Listle product facility is now in the 10-year capital forecast. And I know the pool replacement is something that's near and dear to the hearts of our community. And it looks like it's going to be, probably delayed into the next 10 years. And I guess my comment right now is that, initially in our presentation this evening, it talked about how a lot of the increases to this current budget will be impacted by the OPP and by the Perth County levy. And I'm feeling like those increases are causing us as a municipality to scale back on some of the projects and some of the needs that we have here locally because some of the other costs from the OPP and the Perth County levy are causing us to, you know, keep our tax rate lower. And in doing that, our projects are being, delayed. And at the end of the day, the longer we delay a project like this, the more it's going to cost. Because as we all know, inflation just increases year over year. And replacing that pool, what we think would look like today, will be astronomically higher in 10 years. So I'm just concerned and I'm just wondering, do we anticipate continuing higher costs with, entities like the OPP and Perth County that we have no control over? And as we anticipate those costs over the next 10 years, will we continually have to scale back? Or will we be able to move ahead with some of our projects? And perhaps our treasurer may need to answer some of these questions and based on my comments, but it is a concern because we are being impacted as a local municipality, and I feel like our hands are tied and not able to do the things that we need to do because, of course, we don't want to raise our taxes, as high as probably we should. So, yeah, I'd like to hear some commentary on that. Thank you.
Great. Ashley, are you comfortable speaking to that? Thanks.
Through your chair, so to address your kind of first part of the question, external factors, certainly they're hard to forecast. They're external factors. We do our best. Our general guidelines looking at inflationary increases. Obviously, this one of the OPP was a bit of a surprise. In regards to the comment within the report of the timing of the project, it doesn't necessarily mean 10 years from now. It was just essentially a placeholder comment so that when you see the 10-year capital forecast that's going to be published this Friday, we'll kind of show where we held it for now. It's not 10 years. I can leave that for now and just wait a couple more days and you'll see that. I think there's another part of the question. I did not write that part down. Am I missing anything?
Because through you, the chair, I guess my concern, treasurer, is that, of course, as a municipality, we want to make sure that our tax rates are fair for our residents, of course. And I know it's hard to predict what's happening, what could happen externally, but it does have a direct impact on what we do locally. And so, with our OPP increased costs and with the county tax levy now, um, I feel like we're having to scale back, and and I think we're going to see that probably more in our capital side. And this is probably a bit of a taste of it. So, that's kind of my concern. And with the aquatic, the replacement of the pool, I'm also wondering if local donations, service clubs, um, local fundraising could increase or uh, make that kind of project happen faster, because we might have some local support for that in terms of fundraising. But I am concerned, of course, about how we as a municipality are needing to scale back. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Dreesen. Well said. Ashton, you have a comment?
Yeah, if I may. So to respond to as far as affordability goes, the current budget does include a provision to put more money into reserves. We've essentially, I would say, the OPP hasn't really impaired our ability to go forward with the pool specifically as a project. The bigger picture item is the amount of capital outlay the municipality has as a whole. So the amount we reinvest into the reserves is really the question. I think we probably would have left at the same amount even if the OPP wasn't there. Now we would gladly, take another percent to make it $400,000 points in reserves. Certainly, that will accelerate the timeline for projects. And with respect to donations, yes, that can certainly help bring the timeline of a capital project forward. Similarly to the grant funding applications that we have out from a number of initiatives today.
Thanks. Councillor Blazek? Question for Jeff?
Thank you through you, Chair. This isn't specific to facilities. This is more of a remark about the OPP conversation that we're having, and I would really hate for it to come across that we are deeming this OPP increase to be a negative, because while we don't like increasing taxes, our OPP officers have been operating short-handed for quite some time, and I, for one, am grateful to see more officers coming to this community. So I just wanted to sort of look at that from a positive perspective.
Thanks. Any questions for Jeff? Councillor Rothwell? And then Councillor.
Okay. Thanks, to Norman, and thanks, Jeff, for your report. I noticed in the business plan, you mentioned specifically the projects, the three projects in particular: the park construction, the Memorial Community Center, and the aquatic facility. Those three are, at least in my mind, they're clearly capital projects. So we're going to hear about more next week, I know. And at that point, I'm sure we're going to, and this is for the Councillor Andreessen's comment, we are going to see anticipated amounts coming from, for example, on the park construction from development charges reserves, correct, as well as in the El Memorial Community Center. Perhaps there'll be a comment in terms of the Atwood Lions proposed contribution towards that. We're going to see some of that information next week. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, Chair. Yes, and through you. We will have some numbers, but we're still in the process of gathering information from our user groups and our staff, which will determine what the scope of work will be, which will then determine what the cost will be. So we know the Lions, as an example, have contributed a third, up to $1 million, towards the refurbishment of that. I would assume that we would be doing a phased-in approach to the project. I don't think we have the ability to wait at the forecasted date that we have there for completion. So I think we need to prioritize a few things like accessibility, like the bathrooms, and tackle those as we move, as opposed to one big fix all at one time. So we won't have numbers at that point. I think we've put in a placeholder of $3.5 million in our capital budget. We'll talk more about that, but that number could change based on what the needs are identified.
Thanks for that comment. And just further back to the operations side, I find it reassuring. I think I'll use my word that the increase of the budget for the operations, given the fact that we have a new facility at the new administration, what do we call it, annex or whatever we're going to call it, on Wallace Ave North there, we're looking at some 40 some $1,000 increase, like for operations and so on, for all of our buildings. I find that somewhat comforting, given the fact that we have a significant increase in our operational staff and so on. So I'm looking forward to that. Now, obviously, we have a snapshot of operations right now in terms of that building, but as I understand, there's going to be additional work to be done, which could very well be on the capital side, which we'll hear about, correct?
That's correct, yes. And some remedial work in the interim.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jeff? Councillor Andreessen?
Thank you through the chair. My next question is around cemeteries. And in the past, we've talked about cost recovery with all of our departments. And I know that our cemetery group has been working towards, cost recovery. I just wondered, how close are we? How close are we to that level of being at cost recovery at this point with our municipality? Thanks.
Yes, and so through the chair, we've increased this year by 5%, so more so than what we have done with the general increase that we have. So we're still striving towards that. I still think we're somewhere in the middle of the park or the pack as far as municipally run cemeteries. Some of the other comparators, like private cemeteries, it's very difficult to get a judge on that where we fit in, but we're still striving towards cost recovery.
Thank you. I think that's it for questions. Nobody's waving their hand at me. We'll move to environmental services. Thanks, Mr. Noel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Nordum and council members. Environmental Services Department, as you know, is responsible for water and wastewater services, solid waste management, emergency management, and climate change initiatives. Some of the priority areas and objectives for next year for this department include ensuring that services are delivered efficiently, cost effectively, and sustainably, and that we have a clear definition of what those services and service levels are that are being delivered to the community. We are striving to make sure that our staff are engaged and they're well trained to be successful and feel valued. We also are trying to have municipal infrastructure that is robust and sustainable, and use innovative solutions and decision making to support high quality, efficient, and effective service delivery. And also in North Perth, ensure that North Perth grows at a sustainable and responsible pace. Our department consists of 14 members, including myself. Some of the highlights for 2024 include we had active participation in some community events like the Water Festival and the Touch a Truck, which was very successful. We had the successful internal appointment of a new utility foreperson. We were able to achieve 100% scores on our MECP well inspections, which was the first time in a few years, so that was good to see. We also had the completion of a comprehensive financial plan and rate study for water and wastewater services, and that involved our renewal of our municipal drinking water licenses. We did some repairs on the sanitary trunk main, and that is now complete. We launched the Water Smart program that has to do with our water meters. That allows customers, residents to monitor their water usage and set custom alerts. There were a number of road projects that we're involved with that included putting infrastructure into the ground. The Binning Street project is looking like it's going to be complete pretty soon. There was York Street, John Street, and Alexander Ave, and also Nelson Ave had work done on them. The clarifier retrofit is well underway at the sewage treatment plant. The first clarifier is complete, and they're about to start working on the second one. We had the upgrade of the septic receiving station, and that is back up and in full operation now again. We completed the energy conservation and demand management plan successfully this year. That's legislative every 5 years. We planted approximately 500 trees and shrubs across North Perth with the support of the Perth County Stewardship and Resiliency Program. We installed 2 level 2 EV chargers at the Steve Kerr Memorial Complex. We're looking at a third one. It's supposed to be installed relatively soon. We'll wait and see. I talked about that last year. We're still at this point. Level 3 at this location here at the municipal office. And also the landfill cell construction, and that's actually completed this year. Looking at a couple of the emerging trends, opportunities, and challenges and risks. Rapid growth in the municipality is always a challenge to ensure that we have adequate water and wastewater services. So there is a draft master servicing plan for Listowel and Atwood that we've been waiting on for a while, and that is actually coming to council on Monday night. So we're excited about that. That would be followed by a public consultation phase, and we're expecting that we will need to do a couple of municipal class environmental assessments, and those will help guide us in the community's future servicing needs to support ongoing growth. We'll also be looking at some options for yard waste and organic recycling, including the potential services being provided to our current waste and recycling contractor. And that I'd like to bring a report in early next year. And we're also looking at potentially increasing our yard waste pickup frequency, and that would maybe be through a contracted provider. And the municipal tree planting program that supports annual plantings in municipal properties across North Perth in partnership with the Middle Maitland Rejuvenation Committee and the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. We are looking at a plan to offer trees to private residents to kind of expand this a little bit to help with some of that planting. And I'll also be bringing that in the new year. Most of the major initiatives for 2025 are all related to capital, so we'll be talking about those next week. I would mention the very first one that's on there, the well maintenance and inspection. That's one that we've actually decided to move out of capital and put into the operations budget. And I'll go through each of the department's operating budgets. So for the water department, reminder to council, it's not on the tax levy, it's a user pay division with fees that are collected from benefiting residents and businesses within the municipality. The fee increases are reflective of those proposed in the recent water and wastewater financial rate study that was done. And the expenses are anticipated to increase by about 4.7% in 2025, and user fees are increasing at about 3%, which would offset the majority of the increased costs. Some of those costs are from transferring capital stuff that we had traditionally and moved it into operations. For the wastewater side, again, it is also user pay. We're seeing revenues increase by about 2.4%. And again, that follows the water and wastewater rate study that was approved by council earlier this year. Expenses are anticipated to increase by about 2%, which will increase the wastewater reserves for the year, supporting the utility's long-term financial sustainability. Looking at the solid waste division, again, user pay completely. Revenues are expected to increase by about 4.9% in 2025, reflecting the inflationary adjustments to fees. Expenses are up by just a small amount of 9%, largely due to being able to reduce some of the contracted third-party services that are provided through Blue Water. Recycling costs are down from what they used to be because of the change to the new system of how that's charged out. And then finally, the North Perth Climate Change and Emergency kind of blended that into one here. It's got a modest increase of $2,000 for 2025. That's mainly due for some contracted third-party service that we'll be looking at. Actually, having a report, a presentation at council this week, and it's offset by a small reduction in the transfer to reserves for the year. So that's it for the Environmental Services Department. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hackett. Any questions for Mark? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Chair Nordum, and thanks, Mark, for the report. I will say it's exciting to see from an operations standpoint the proposal that we'd be looking at moving forward with the organic recycling. I know this has been an issue which I and other councillors perhaps have heard. I'm sure staff have heard about this for quite some time, so it's a great opportunity to see us move forward. Now, can you just speak to us a little bit further in terms of the actual amount that's coming off our budgets dealing with, because of the producer responsibility that happened in April 2024. So that first quarter, basically, that we had in 2024, there was a savings, if you will, that we don't have for that quarter in this year. So will that go towards the implementation of the organics recycling, or is this an additional fee on top that we'd be paying? Thank you.
Um, that would be up to council to decide at the time when it's presented, but the savings are substantial. We used to pay around $200,000 a year for the recycling portion of the fee, and that's down to about I think it's around 60,000. I don't have that number in front of me. So we have been putting that money the last year into reserves, so that's built up our reserves a little bit, and that would help with possibly implementing that program once council has a look at it in the new year.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mark? Seeing none. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Next, we'll be moving on to Manager of Operations, the new Linden. Maybe introduce yourself again for all of us. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Nerdum and members of council. My name is Matt Robb, and I'm your new operations manager. Tonight, I'll be presenting to you the business plan and budget for your operations department. It's worth noting that the operations department looks after some of your most critical and expensive assets. Assets such as roadways, bridges, culverts, street lighting, signals, sidewalks, signage, drainage, and stormwater management. Other areas of focus of the group include development oversight and GIS mapping services for operations and other departments within the municipality. Key priorities for the group include maintaining our municipal assets in a state of repair, ensuring that we are monitoring current life cycle planning for all critical rehabilitation and reconstruction projects. Our maintenance also strives to continue to uphold the minimum maintenance standards as dictated by the province. Some key departmental overview. Staffing levels are to remain the same as 2024, so there'll be 16 full-time staff and 10 temporary and seasonal staff that are mainly used for winter operations. The division is comprised of an infrastructure group, operations, stormwater and drainage management, including GIS. Although I may have only been here for the last 4 weeks, 2024 was a busy year in our department, and I'd like to highlight a few of those important roles that took place. First off, kudos to the operations group for maintaining and upholding the minimum maintenance standard levels of service for both summer and winter operations. We were able to finalize and adapt the transportation master plan, including a truck bypass plan. We will also be hearing at the next upcoming council meeting the latest draft presentation on the master servicing plan. In conjunction with Mr. Hackett's updates, the reconstruction of York Avenue, Nelson Avenue, and Benning Street will be completed by the end of the month. Reconstruction of John Street and Alexander Avenue was completed earlier this summer. 988 reconstruction by municipal forces was completed in September. Connecting Link funding was also awarded for the Highway 23 South resurfacing and construction project from the province. We have continued on the Northeast Development Area project. And lastly, there's been 2 significant hires in the group. Myself, manager of operations, and also a new development coordinator. Some emerging trends, opportunities, challenges, and risks for the group for the upcoming year. It's been identified that third-party work continues to increase within our road right-of-ways. The municipality is responsible for managing the location of infrastructure within our road allowance and ensuring there are no present and future conflicts. The municipality continually seeks to reduce liability when contractors work within our road allowance. Confirmation of contractor documentation allows the municipality to ensure due diligence has been completed and contractors are following relevant legislation. To go along with this, the municipality has begun implementing a public works permitting software application. The software will streamline applications for permits such as access permits, work permits, and municipal consent permits. The software will further allow a straightforward and consistent approach to granting permits and provide a historical database should future follow-up be required. The permit approval process is anticipated to become a cost-recoverable service. Some major initiatives for 2025. The majority of these are actually capital initiatives, so we can definitely cover them in more detail next week. But I would just like to draw your attention to the bottom two on that page, of page 51. The first one being the pavement condition index. This is a survey that's done once every 5 years to measure and gauge the condition of our roadway infrastructure that allows us to complete long-term capital forecasting. And the last one on that page was traffic speed reductions, as identified in the Transportation Master Plan, a review and recommendation on lowering speed limits on residential, collector, and arterial roads. There are 3 defined budget groups within the department, first one being operations. For 2025, as Ashton alluded to earlier in the presentation, the budget has a 4.5% increase, which is approximately $325,000 over 2024, with the primary driving being the gravel road maintenance contract, seeing an increase alone of almost $300,000. In efforts to reduce the overall levy impact and introduce reserve fund bylaw, provisions towards winter control have been reduced to align with recent winter control activities. Next, the stormwater. We are projecting 4,000 or a 1% increase over 2024 on our funded fees. Efficiencies have also been identified in our expenditures and allowed for budget reallocations to increase, again, transfers to reserves to support long-term sustainability. Lastly, the North Perth fleet. It's worth noting that the operations department is responsible for managing all fleet equipment, excluding fire. And for 2025, we are proposing a 0 increase for that operating budget. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rob. Any questions for Matt? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Matt, and welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
The question I have, again, you've mentioned the capital we'll talk about next week, but the work and approval that we're waiting for the Ministry of Transportation on Main Street, Atwood, through Highway 23 and so on is different than the project you have listed here. But I see that we're not on the schedule here at all. Are we awaiting the green light from the province? And then if we do get that, then we're going to have a capital program put in place if it is 2025, or would that be a budget amendment if we do get the green light that we're praying for and hoping for?
I'm going to have to defer to the treasurer on this one.
Through turnover, it's a combination. There's an active open capital project. There's a little bit of funding there already, but the difference we'll need, if let's say it happened next year, would be something along the lines of a budget amendment.
Okay, thanks very much. Again, I simply put that because the business plan is saying we mentioned Highway 23, and so anyways, we'll have more conversation next week. Thanks very much, and sorry, Matt.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have a comment. So this increase in 300,000 for gravel, we don't really have control over that because we signed a contract in the previous year, correct?
Correct. It's a 2-year contract.
Okay. Just so everyone's informed. we have no control over that 300,000 change. Thanks. Well, thank you, Matt. I think we'll be moving on to the North Perth Public Library. Last but certainly not least.
That's on purpose, right? Thanks for having me tonight. I have the privilege of presenting the North Perth Public Library Board's budget for this year. Just to overview our library services, we set our own strategic goals and priorities. And just to remind Council, our three priorities are grow out into the community, remove barriers, and sustainability and good stewardship. When we looked at the 2025 budget, we really focused on fulfilling those priorities. A big change for us this year is an actual organizational structure review. We had a significant retirement, and due to board direction, we created more of a tiered structure. And you'll see the increased requests reflect that new staffing structure. Focusing on our strategic plan again, we've incorporated our coordinator of community connections, which was a full-time equivalent approved in 2023, which we just recently hired, just due to staffing delays. And our coordinator of digital initiatives, and our new role as well is our manager of branch experience, who's taken some of that supervision of the frontline staff as a responsibility. Part of our responsibility also is to coordinate with our Perth County Information Network partners to provide service to all of Perth County and expand our resources. That fits into our strategic priority of that sustainability and being prudent with our resources that way. So some highlights for 2024 is we did roll out a new brand, and you can see that brand in our organizational structure. We launched a new website alongside the municipality, which resulted in a 150% increase in traffic to our library website. We did do the restructuring, and we had a really awesome increase in our summer program, both for children and adults. You can see that at 28 and 37% respectively. We did some physical changes to our Atwood branch based on community feedback, lots of data collection to advise those decisions. Do encourage council to stop by. It is much more welcoming. Been able to put our brand on, and thanks to facilities, we have fun brand new blue doors. So people do know there's a library now in Atwood as well. We continue to partner with the municipality in outreach events and DEI initiatives, strong partners with strategic initiatives and programming, and continuing partnership and growing partnership with the fire department, helping promoting municipal messaging and even data collection for some of the surveys. We've introduced a lot of new collections based on changes in our community, like a collection called Vox Books, which is an audiobook that you can read along with a speaker built in, as well as a French collection to align with the community's emerging French immersion program. And we're going to be introducing video games before the end of the year. We also calculate our social return on investment, which helped us set goals for 2025 and to the completion of our strategic plan. And we continue to work closely with the Perth County Information Network, which set its own strategic plan this year as well. We also work very closely with our friends at the library, who launched the Dolly Parton Imagination Library Initiative this year, which has been great advocacy for the library, promoting literacy in North Perth. Some of our challenges as we work through all these is to be prepared for the legacy project with the United Housing in terms of a new build on our space. So we anticipate and continue to plan to see what that's like. So the demand is not so high when the project comes to fruition on council. Our community growth and our continued increase in level of service and the different services that we're being demanding, like printing. If anyone needs printing, come to the library. It's one of our major sources of interaction with the community right now. So major initiatives for 2025. I won't go through all of these, but we did set some quantitative goals this year, including a 10% increase in active card holders, an increase of our social return on investment number by 3%, and our focus for 2025 is to get more out into the community and fulfill that strategic priority with the hiring of our coordinator of community connections. So we're hoping to be in pop-up events around the community. You might have seen us at a hockey game recently, giving out prizes to promote our services and our programming or on the highway, we try to engage our community that way. So we're hoping to create a community asset map, participating with here in Perth Public Health as we create and focus on social prescribing as a mandate. And we continue to be prepared for that access center. So our request this year does reflect full staffing complement. We did reduce where we could to reevaluate and align with our strategic priorities, which as council knows does need budget to fulfill those goals. But the increase is reflective of that staffing complement. Thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Whalen. Any questions for Ellen? Seeing none, I think we're through the managers. So, I have a motion before me that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the 2025 proposed operating budget and business plan for information purposes. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kellum, seconded by Mayor Kiesenberg. Discussion or debate? Seeing none, we'll have the vote. That is carried. Moving on to item 4.1. Does any councillors have requesting reports from staff? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Richardson, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you. Thanks everyone for your reports tonight. Just a couple of comments here and then a question. Obviously, we're all a little shocked at the LPP contract and the pricing that has come in, even though, as Councillor Blazek had said, that it is a good thing that we are getting increased presence. It's still a sticker shock when it goes up that much money. And every municipality in Ontario is feeling that. And what makes it really unfortunate is municipalities don't even have a say at the table. It's not even a negotiation. Here's your bill, pay it, take it. Two choices, like it or lump it, which is very, very unfortunate for that to be that way. Anyway, I digress. Thank you for your reports. Budget's a little higher than what I would like to see, but we can't help that when the mitigating factors are beyond our control. We can't help the cards that are given to us. One thing, my original question is that in the last 3 months of the year, that's when, from the previous years, when we do our catch-up billing from the previous year for a tax increase to pay for the increase for the year. Like it's usually in the last interim tax bill that comes out that there's actually an increase to play catch-up from the year before. Is there any way that we can look at that? Because I know it's a very minimal amount for what your tax increase would be, but if there's any way to distribute that out over the year, that I have received a couple of calls. It's not a big amount, but when you have a significant budget that comes in and all of a sudden, boom, you've got an extra $50 a month or $60 a month. And I know it's small, but it's still, you put that into 3 months until you get caught up again, that can make a difference to your monthly budget. Is there a way that we can possibly look at that throughout the year, stretch it over, just given the potential tax increase that we're going to have going forward, to take that out of that 90-day circulation for the last interim tax bill?
Thank you. Ashton, you'd like to comment?
Through your chair, Norman. In fact, we conversed about that this morning with the finance team. It really comes down to the historic practices of when final tax bills are issued. I believe final tax bills are issued in late August, early September, and the interim bill is issued in the beginning of March. So that the interim bill represents 50% of the prior year's taxes, and that's collected, I believe, in April and June, or April, I don't remember the exact due dates, but the second final tax bill that actually reconciles the entire year with the updated rates is later in the year, and that's what impacts people on a monthly payment plan. Essentially, they're collecting the interim bill over, I believe, 8 months. And then the final bill for 4, and that's why they see that big increase from a monthly pre-authorized perspective. The way around it is revising the tax due dates and when the bills are issued. Historically, where I am, the final tax where I was before we were issued in the beginning of June, and we collected that at the end of June and the end of September, 2 installments for the final tax bill. So they were all paid by the end of September. That provided the opportunity to have monthly pre-authorized payment plan customers to have their interim bill collected over 6 months and the final tax bill over 6 months. So really, we would need to consider revising when bills are issued. I know from the conversation the way that the dates have been and the time of bills have been issued overall are predate way back. So it'd be a very big change for the community. Looking into the 2025 year, it may be unlikely, at least from a public communication perspective, unless we get a pretty big campaign to begin revising the timeline of tax bills. And that starts with the interim bill, and that's not too far away. So perhaps that might be something we need to look into 2026, but it's something we were conversing about. But if it's the will of council for us to, officially dig deeper into that, we can certainly look into that.
And supplemental to that, I think that would be a good idea, and I totally understand the timelines and the pressures, and not immediately. But it would be nice to see something back, even with some examples in writing to go forward. That if we're going to implement that change to us or council in the future, that I think it would be nice to have something mapped out anyway for a possible change and amendment to that. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Richardson. Yeah, I agree. It's a big hit. So, any Councillor? Oh, Councillor Athwal.
Thanks very much, Chair Mark. I'm wondering if council would agree for a staff report. I believe it was 3 years ago, staff provided a report regarding the increased full-time staff. And I'm wondering if we could have an update of that report with the proposed staffing increase here so that all of council sees the growth of staff to address the increased workloads and so on, so that we have a full understanding how we've moved along the spectrum to try to address the issue of increased workload. So if, I believe it was 3 years ago that we had that report looking at additional staff. I think it would be helpful. At least I would find it helpful. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Any comments, CAO?
So just more of a technicality is we probably should have a motion from Councilor Richardson first request, just because it will take some significant effort on the finance department's part, and then I would also someone request a motion for Councilor Rothwell's request as well.
Yep, thank you. You would like to make a motion first, Councillor Richardson? Looking for a seconder. Councillor Duncan. That's moved. Do you have something? Yeah. It didn't come up for me. I vote in favor. And that is carried. So, Councillor Rothwell, you would like to make a motion for a report from 3 years ago?
Yes, Chair Mortem, that staff be requested to update a report regarding increased staffing levels, including the proposed 3 additional full-time equivalents under the proposed operational budget. Thank you.
Okay, looking for a seconder. Councillor Richardson. Discussion or debate? Let's have the vote. I'll be in favor. My scribe is being slow. And that is carried. Any other council requests, reports? Seeing none. Oh, Councilor Anstett.
Thanks, Gerard. I'm through you, and I don't think this is necessarily a report, but I just had a few comments to make on the OPP costing. And again, I'm just going to be brief because I know we've already talked about this, and this is not just a North Perth issue. This is a county-wide issue, provincial-wide issue for that matter. This is not new. I just want to be clear on this. These costs have been increasing, certainly not to this extent, as everyone knows. But and like I said, not necessarily a report. Excuse me, not necessarily a report, but perhaps something that we can look at in terms of what we're doing down the road. Things about looking at our billing statement, going through it line by line, taking things out that don't necessarily apply to our municipality, looking at grants, things that we can do to reduce these costs if applicable. Also lobbying other representatives. I know that these are costs that are a lot of times these are told, these are what we have to do, but we have to ask some questions. And again, I'm not the police do great work. It's already been mentioned. They do awesome work. They do a great job. But I think we just need to ask some questions about these long-term costs because, like we mentioned, this is going to impair our ability to take on new projects, capital, what have you, down the road. So, like I said, not necessarily a report, but just something that staff, mayor, representatives on the board, Mayor Kasenberg, that we can look at down the road. Thank you.
Yep, I'll allow you to comment. Thanks, Councilor Anstett.
Tried to stay out of the fray on UPP comments this evening. Certainly at this week's Perth County Detachment Board meeting, there was a report from the police explaining the increase that we are seeing. Of course, all the municipalities, as you mentioned, Councillor Anstett, have been facing significant pressures. I've heard some that were as low as 18% increases and some that were 37%. So there's a wide variety of practice and it's across the board. Because it's across the board, it's important to sort of clarify the public record, which is this. According to the reports that I received as in being in attendance at the detachment board meeting, this is largely a consequence of wage increases that have been applied to OPP contracts across Ontario. Certainly, there was a period of time when police were not receiving substantial wage increases, especially during the pandemic, and this is a correction. It's a significant correction, and all of us get to pay for that correction at this point in time. It affects, as I said, different municipalities in different ways. It is not, generally speaking, a correction in service level. That's not what's happening here. It's not because we're getting extra officers assigned, although there are some coming our way, but that is a function of the OPP's contract with us to provide an adequate level of policing, which is largely what the contract says. So it's not about extra officers coming into our community and we're paying the hit for that. It is absolutely about wage corrections across the board for OPP services that are being seen. And the cost of training, for example, have also increased. The intensity of training has increased. So there's a whole bunch of things that have added up in this case to affect every municipality. if I'm not mistaken, either at the county or here, and my memory sometimes between these two meetings is not the best, there was a resolution from another community indicating that we would like Ontario to upload some of these costs for community policing in small and rural municipalities. And I think Councillor Richardson referred to that in his comments. Thank you. I think that's an important query. We need to ask the province to help us with that, because in some ways they're the ones who have implications in the contract negotiations that led to this bump in the wage increases. I think, like you, Councillor Anstead, I have no concern about the quality of policing and the intensity of policing, generally speaking, is adequate. But certainly the province and the OPP reached a new deal, and that new deal affects us very directly. And so it would be lovely if the province would make us whole in their own language on the subject of OPP funding and services and the costs that are involved.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson,
Thank you. I'll be very quick through you, Chair. And please refresh my memory. That a couple of weeks ago, or last council meeting, I do believe that there were a couple of in the consent agenda, a couple of resolutions that were directed to police costing before we had seen this. Did we actually support one of those to send it to AMO to go through? Just, I don't even know how that works in the previous consent agenda, but perhaps we should put our name on that ticket. And I don't have it right in front of me, or possibly can we have it come added to the consent again to come back to support Monday night? Or would it not be, it's sort of moot at this point?
I might look to the clerk for that question.
Through the chair, if it's the will of council, we could recirculate the resolutions from the November 4th council meeting. I'm just looking at the agenda here. There were a couple that we could recirculate on next week's consent agenda. Alternatively, a council member could bring forward a notice of motion if that is the direction you would like to take as well. But we could recirculate those resolutions from the other municipalities.
So what I got out of that is either we could do a notice of motion or we could recirculate the resolution.
Correct. Yes.
What would your will be there, Councillor Richardson?
Well, notice of motion takes time to do that while these are getting supported. It is my thought and my 2 cents to bring forward a resolution that has already been put forth and supported by other municipalities. Bring that forward for recirculation next Monday night, and then we have the opportunity to support it at that point.
Yep, sounds good. Do we need to have a motion put for a recirculation? Or staff direction?
Through the chair, just for administrative sake, I would seek direction from council just to recirculate those specific resolutions since they were already received by council for information. So I think that would just be the smoothest.
Great, sounds good. So, motion from Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Mayor Giesberg. Discussion or debate? Seeing none, we'll go towards the vote. And that is carried. So, I don't think we're going to have any more council requests for reports. So we will be moving on to section 5. So 5.1. Are there any announcements? Seeing none, we will be moving to section 6. That would be the confirmatory bylaw. Please note that Councillor Anstead has left the chambers. So I have a motion before me for 6.1, that bylaw number 103, 2024, being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the Chair and the Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation. Moved by Councillor Andreessen, seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Please let Councillor Anstead back in. Moving on to section 7, notice for adjournment. So I have a motion before me that the council meeting adjourns at 9:09 p.m. to meet again for general council business on November the 18th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Looking for Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Blazek. That's non-negotiable, so we'll have the vote.